In all honesty, it's very difficult to have a conversation when we're not on the same plane. When I say something in the lanes of, can you bring me a spoon? And I come back and I bring you a fork. My first reaction would be a nonverbal confusion of like, a spoon and a fork are not the same thing. But for some, a spoon is similar to any utensil that is needed to eat. The specifics do not matter. It is irrelevant in their perspective to them and to the people around them so far. So it's confused. They're confused by, quote unquote, my confusion with the fork and the spoon situation. This is really self-evident when you talk about fork and spoons because everybody knows what I'm talking about. But when we talk about bigger ideas, like very simple directions, north, east, southwest, they're not exactly as clear anymore because it's not just about following the arrow, it's about the in-betweens, it's about the nuance. When there is nuance, there's a need to kind of clarify a baseline, because if you don't, it's very easy for everyone to assume that we're all talking about spoons, we're all talking about forks, but we're not. We're talking about the underlying expectation of what that word means. So if I say, hey, bring me a plate, and you bring me a bowl, the bowl and the plate is not the same thing. But for some, plates are synonymous to any type of dish that you can eat from. So it doesn't matter to them. It's not because it doesn't matter, it's because it was never necessarily pressed in a certain way where it was any type of concern or issue of this format, if the format was perhaps different. Nuance is so important when we have conversations, and it's so important when we're listening to information, to data. You see a lot of books right here. There's a lot of different voices saying a lot of different things, and it's important sometimes to decipher away from the words and hear what the message is. And sometimes it's important to hear the message, but also take into account the words that are being used, because they are eye-opening into the perception, the emotion, the psyche, and the awareness of somebody else's state at this moment when he shared whatever it is. At this time, I feel like my initial goal was to read and share some feedback, because not necessarily everybody is interested in literature, not everybody necessarily has the time to read or to focus, and there's many situations in the past where I had the intention to read, but I was overwhelmed, or I was tired, or it was hard to find the right space or the right timing or access, right? Nowadays, I feel like there's links, there's Audible, there's a lot of different ways that we can have access to information, regardless of wanting to read it on. There's apps, there's a lot of different platforms that will help you to synthesize information even, so you can listen to it, or you can read a summary of almost any type of information you want on the interwebs, for real. So things are accessible. The thing is, even though you have access to almost everything, it is still very important. So important for you to be able to hear and decipher, not to judge negatively or positively, but in order to make your own opinion, to actually hear further than the way or the tone or the way things are said, the tone into which things are said. This is all the nuance that I was referring to when I said like northeast, southwest. It's an in-betweens that are not so evident, and in order for that to become evident, it's not a magic trick. There's no quick 3 tips that I'm going to share right now. What I used to be interested in was, I would be with adults, with adult books, with no images except on the cover. So if I wanted to read something and I didn't know what the fuck it was about, I would have a dictionary. For me, my dictionary is on the other side of the screen. my reference books. So I would have a dictionary, dictionary, and all this stuff. I would have a book and I would read. And then if I didn't know this adjective, if I didn't know the term, I would look it up. And then for real, I'm a nerd like that. I would like to read. Every time there was a new edition of the Larousse ou Le Petit Albert or whatever the fuck it was, dictionary, I would look it up because there would always be a middle part or the end part with des citations, what's the word for that? Quotations or different illustrations that were selected by the publisher, right? And I thought it was so cool. So these are one of those things where I really enjoyed illustration with the sake of showcasing a principle, showcasing a quote, showcasing a storyline. And then I also enjoyed how illustration helped people get hooked into stories that they would not read normally. There's a lot of concepts even that are approached that within philosophy that are spoken about and mentioned throughout, like Spider-Man, Batman, all those DC and Marvel universe. There's a lot of principles that I don't necessarily believe that cold turkey somebody would just get up and pick up those different poetry or philosophy books, but because it's showcased within the dialogue and within the storyline, people are becoming more and more aware of different perspectives and different ways of seeing what is or is not betrayal, what is or is not correct, what is or is not worth it, what is or is not fine, what is or is not a hero or a villain or an anti-hero or a POC or... I'm going to stop with my analogies here, but the whole point was really because I came to the realization of like, okay, if I simply step in the core part of, if I'm simply me, and there's only one day at a time, my point at this time is to rediscover fiction because I realized that it used to bring me a lot of joy and I don't read anymore. That's one. Reading it out loud would be so constructive for my speaking pattern. I feel like I lost a lot of my vocabulary in French and in English. I think that in order to be bilingual, you don't necessarily have to do everything in all languages all the time. Not because it's not useful. That's what I wish, that's what I want to aim at. Like one day it will be the case, but in between, I feel like a mix of both is going to be useful. And perhaps kind of instead of putting so much pressure on having everything bilingual and perfectly like taken care of efficiently, that I take advantage of the fact that there's a lot of platforms out here that exist in terms of simplifying processes with editing and subtitles. Same thing with translation. You do not necessarily have to sit down with a dictionary anymore and actively step in to each sentence and paragraph. You genuinely can scan the information, even with the picture, not the picture, but the camera on your phone. You take a picture, you can scan the information, you go down with your notes, etc. There's so many options in terms of versatility when it comes to working smarter with the tools that we do have at our disposal. So at this point in time, I see how spending time outside is useful. I see how sharing outwards is going to be more constructive. So reading out loud is not necessarily the fastest way to read. It's faster to read in your head, but a lot of those books I've read before, right? And those that I actually haven't, it's going to be a discovery to read out loud. I think it's going to be fun. And if it's not fun, then listen. It's a choice that I make. I'm going to try. And we'll see if I get bored or if I don't really like it or if I see that it's not bringing me the benefits that I think it will, which is improve my ability to speak out loud, improve my ability to enunciate, improve my ability to expand my vocabulary and my diction, my awareness. I think that when you read multiple authors, You also discover multiple types of ways to explain your ideas, your thoughts, multiple ways to describe, and multiple ways to connect different types of characters, storylines, styles, genre, I think. So, mes frères, mes sœurs, chers amis, mesdames et messieurs, il faut pas l'oublier. So yeah, that's what's up. So reading, in terms of illustration, I realized that like the narration and the storytelling from anime is so much more evocative and entertaining than quote-unquote the typical Disney from 70 years ago. That being said, I feel like there is a middle ground that can be found between fighting for the sake of fighting only and just having cute stuff for the sake of having cute stuff. I'm sure there's just like a middle ground that's doable in there. When it comes to the data, so that's the thing. Storyline, whether it's a verbal story that is said out loud, whether it's a book, it's an article, it's a research paper, whether it's a documentary or it's an episode or a movie, it's very easy to stay in daydreams. As a reader, it's very easy for me to stay in this loop of reading, enjoying it, and connecting with other users. But I feel like I'm at this point where I really have been thinking about this for a while, and I've been not only procrastinating, but having a lot of different valid excuse to my own self of why this was not relevant and this was superficial, and maybe I was asking for, and I was like, you know what, it's okay. Let's try, let's start, let's continue. And I feel like at the end of the day, my aim is already to read, because I like to read, so I don't lose anything. And if it's about pride, that level of gossiping in my life has sunk that ship a decade ago. So we are used to make a paddle with the debris and enjoy the waves as they come for the novelty and wisdom and gratefulness that it can bring us. But in order for things to become a form of wisdom and not just a superficial way of wasting time, there's a need to actually assess what you read. There's a need to pause, to kind of go over certain terms, and that's what I want to do. I don't want to just read the book for the sake of reading the book. I want to genuinely kind of pause as I'm reading it, the same way I would by myself. And the reason why is not because of anything else than before I can start to ask questions and feel like people see the worth in having that dialogue with me, I need to showcase that I actually already started to listen. Not just to them, but I listen to other people. Not just to other people, but to like voices that are accessible to everybody, that anybody can access and everybody can hear or read from. And from there, I feel like there's a lot more reciprocity and feedback that can come up because it won't be simply coming in from me, what I think, what I perceive, what I believe, what I think, what I feel, but it becomes of, oh, I heard and seen, and from the feedback, I'm able to understand or see a different vision that I wouldn't have necessarily been able to guess out of the blue, but here we are. And so I have faith that there's always tomorrow, but not every day is going to be, always pointing to the north in terms of perfection, but we flow and we do what we can with what we have in terms of our capacity. And if there's always tomorrow, then it's always about trying to show up outside of inactivity. If you did nothing today, that means that you were alive. So we're grateful we're alive. You did nothing today, but you were alive, which is a gift in and of itself, regardless of your circumstances. And then from there, if you did something today, then what can I learn from this? Did I enjoy it? Did I not? Why was it worth it? And then move forward. We're going to be April 22nd very soon. Nothing is too challenging when you start with doing one task at a time. And so right now I do have some things that I have to step out and go take care of, but I will be looking forward to this daily ascension towards cohesion and connection and completion, and it's low-key exciting, but I'm not excited like, oh my god, I can't wait for it to finish. It's more than excited to start and to just maintain. I think it's going to be something pretty awesome. If I can look back in like 22 days, let's say, I like that. 22 days, starting on the 22nd, that if I can start something that's tangible. That's tangible, and not just start but continue. So on the precipice of the start, where on est maintenant après, I wish you so much patience for your process and compassion for your progress. You got this. Keep your head up. No matter how many times it's easier to keep it down, remind yourself. Stand within yourself, and I'm excited to see you guys on the other side.